Ladies and gentlemen, may I welcome you today to the Alumnus of the Year Symposium, Self-Sufficient Communities. A warm welcome to you all, but a special warm welcome to the just appointed Alumnus of the Year, Josephine Groot. Yeah. Of course, a warm welcome to the Dean of the Faculty of the PM, that's the English abbreviation, the correct English abbreviation, and all the other distinguished speakers and scientists that will fill this afternoon. My name is Jasper Petrich. I'm Director of Alumni Relations and the University Fund. And I'm really, really happy with the choice we made this year for the Alumnus of the Year. Because with Josephine, we choose to emphasize the importance of entrepreneurship. I think we here in Delft, we are a research institute, but research stays research when it isn't taken up by entrepreneurs to prove the validity of it in society. And then research becomes innovation. And innovation is what drives our growth, our security, and which brings us, makes us take the next step. So entrepreneurship is very, very important, and therefore I'm really, really happy, Josephine, that we choose you, a young an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, but also a true engineer. You are an entrepreneur with a highly technical company, and that also is very important for, of course, a Delft Alumnus of the Year. There should be a technical aspect in what you're doing, which you do. So I just had a discussion on why are we organizing an Alumnus of the Year? What's the purpose of choosing one? And I said we do this for the students. We do this for the students. As I said when we unveiled your plaque, I said we do this for the students that they see on the shoulders of which giants they stand, and that it will be inspiring for them, and that they will see what they can do with their Delft education, and what the Delft education can make possible. But then also, and it's good that you made me realize this, that this also is very important for the alumni we work for, that realize that you see and society as a whole, to see that what Delft can bring forward, and what engineers will do in the world, and how important their role is. And also in the case of you, Josephine, that young female entrepreneurs from Delft can be extremely successful and make a huge difference. Because that's another part in choosing the Alumnus of the Year, is that we always want that what the alumnus does has impact for a better society, which is the cause of the TU Delft. And you make impact for a better society. So that's, I think, very good that not only for the students, but for society as a whole, we have chosen you, Josephine, this year. So again, a big applause for this fantastic choice. But then, you choose as a subject for this symposium, not an entrepreneurial thing or a technical subject. No, you choose a subject which is very close to my own heart. You want to talk about self-sufficient communities. And you see, we as the Alumni Relations and actually as the TU, we believe in TU Delft for life. We believe that you're born as an engineer and you will stay an engineer to the last day of your life. And if you set foot here on the campus and studied here in one of these faculties, that you will stay TU Delft for life. That TU Delft, this university, has a special place in your heart, and that you will always be part of this community. And so what we try with Alumni Relations is to form this huge gathering of alumni. We think at this moment where approximately 120,000 TU Delft alumni are still alive in this world. We don't know them all. They're certainly not all in our database, but we think there are almost 120,000 alumni. So this community of alumni is there. But what our goal is to make these alumni aware that they're part of this community and that they can benefit from this community. And we want is to make it stronger and make this community more active and make the members of this community more aware what this community can mean for them. So for me, I'm really anxious to to follow this symposium and see what it will bring me as a director of alumni relations, how we can enforce our TU Delft for Life community. So my question to the speakers is, think about this, because for certain I'll ask you, how can we improve to make this huge TU Delft for Life community more tight-knit, more active, and more involved in what's happening here at the campus, and also more aware of the benefits that this community has for them and the benefits that this community has for the TU Delft. So I'll ask you this. But that's enough about me. I think you're all waiting very much for, and I hope I pronounce your name well, Aminé. The floor is yours, and you'll talk us through The Future is Collective. And you have the clicker.
Yeah, that's the clicker there.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, good, cool. You know more about this than I do.
So, hello everyone, good afternoon. I don't see people at the back, which is not very helpful because I usually connect to the eyes of the people, so I'll just try to find your eyes. So, thank you for the invitation. Special congratulations to Josephine for this brilliant achievement. Yeah, so this is the talk I'm going to be giving you in a very short time. The future is collective, and I'm going to be talking about trust and social cohesion in our changing world. But I'm going to start with a rather sad story, because that's the situation that I find myself mostly in, where there's just so much in my head, you know, like there's the news of war, for example. Is Ukraine, where is it going to move towards this war in Europe? And then there's climate change, extreme heat, and in the Netherlands, oh my God, is my house going to be flooded? How much underground, under sea level am I living in? And you know, there's just so much information coming to our way. And I don't know about you, but last week I received this booklet from the ministry that wanted us to prepare for 72 hours of emergency, so make sure you have enough water for 72 hours. And you know, like at that point, what I felt like was, so what if at that point I don't actually have the 72 hours water available in my house, and immediately you feel this like sense of isolation and thinking, maybe it's good that I check in with my neighbors just to see, you know, like at that point, if one of us don't have it, would the neighbor have it or not? So I think like at this point in time, there's just so much going in our heads, and especially with the phone giving us so much information, that we're at a stage where we feel that we have to look forward and have some planning for the future. So, well, luckily, what science tells us is that if we are connected to each other, not connected to our phones, but connected to people, it actually substantially improves our well-being. Which means that me being worried about all the sorts of things that can happen around me would feel more comfortable just by being connected. And then at the same time, it actually makes the society more resilient towards future. So if there's a flood, for example, COVID coming our way again, another virus, then just being together actually makes the society more resilient and more future-proof. So, yeah, you might say, okay, so can we actually create connectedness? Can we just say, hey, let's plug ourselves into each other instead of our phones? Well, it's very difficult, but luckily, science again has shown that there are very simple solutions that can help us. So this one that I'm presenting to you is urban commons. We call them urban commons, which could be as simple as community gardens. So a garden shared by a number of neighbors in a neighborhood where they plant tomatoes. And you might say, hey, what's the purpose of tomatoes? We're busy with other things. Well, actually, we're not seeding the tomatoes, the plants. It's actually for the bigger purpose, for creating connectedness. So research has shown that the sense of having this community shared space between us actually helps people feel more included in their community, in their neighborhood. And then once they feel included, they actually volunteer to help out in the garden, if it's a community kitchen or just a gathering place for holding birthdays, for example. As soon as you start feeling included, then trust starts to build, and you create this sense of community spirit, which actually makes our community, in this case, neighborhoods, more resilient. Now, so there are actually lots of good examples. What you see in the picture is a project, a research conducted in the UK. And what they saw was that during COVID, those neighborhoods that had existing community gatherings, say urban gardens or collective kitchen, for example, something in their neighborhoods were actually much more resilient. So when there was lockdown and nobody could, so the shops were closed, and especially the elderly, the vulnerable people had to stay inside because of the risks. There was these voluntary activities going on, so the younger people going out in their neighborhood, shopping for the elderly, and this was just self-organized without anybody doing any planning. I mean, just having this connectedness, knowing each other, helped that particular community take care of themselves. So there was actually a very strong correlation between having existing relationships in the community and how, in the case of emergency, in this case resilience, people were actually able to self-organize and take care of their surrounding people. And there are more examples. So this is again in the UK. So those communities, those neighborhoods that were connected, in this case there's a flood, they actually just self-organized and quickly went out to help their neighbors, and pull the water out of their houses, and it just makes you happy, you know, just to be connected to other people and know that if I run out of water in my house, in case of emergency, I'm not looking forward to it, at least I know there's somebody I can go to and there will be people taking care of us. So that's yes, science proves it, but then yes, it would be great if we have these strong neighborhoods, strong, resilient neighborhoods, but then we want our society, the world, to be, strong and resilient in case there is emergency coming our way. So the question is, how do we move from these small seeds, these communities, to a forest of resilience in our society, in our urban world, and rural, of course. And this is where a bit of science, I try to be as unscientific as possible, but I'm bringing a bit of science here as well. So there are different ways of spreading the seed. So one of them is deep scaling, which means that we are just so connected to our phones that it takes time and effort to connect to the society instead, to connect to our neighbors. We have to strengthen the roots, so we have to change values, we have to redefine relationships, we have to have cultural shifts, because we were communities, then we became individualistic people, and now we have to learn to be communities again. And then what this requires is embedding trust, so we have to really build in the DNA inside our communities to actually be able to trust each other and better connect to our neighborhoods. And of course, not everybody is able to connect. People like me have limited time. There are people who are more shy. There are people who just feel that they want to have their own space. So the feeling of inclusion is actually a responsibility that is on all our shoulders. So we have to make sure that everybody is included, even those who are just left out for various reasons. Yeah, and the second one is that, yes, I would have a really nice neighborhood where we're connected, for example, ideal, but it would only be successful if it's recognized by policymakers. So we have to upscale and make sure that our policymakers also recognize social connectedness as much as infrastructure. So what happens currently is that our policymakers think that if we build dams and dikes and make infrastructure in such a way that is resilient towards flood, then we have a resilient society. Well, bad luck, this is not the case. So yeah, resilience is not really concrete and steel only. It's actually also about connecting to people and creating trust and solidarity, like the examples that I gave you in the UK. And then finally, once we have good examples, what we ideally want to do is outscale. So the goal is not really to connect everybody in the city. That's impossible. We only have limited number of people that we connect to, around 100 max. So outscaling doesn't mean that I make my neighborhood as big as possible and just include everybody. The neighborhood scale stays the same, but it's the seeds that are spread. So we should have this community connection across our cities, but also across our countries and across the world, so that a garden in Rotterdam can be an inspiration for example, a garden in Nairobi. And therefore, we make this web of connection among people in the society. Okay, so just to wrap up, I want to emphasize that community cohesion is not a luxury. It's an infrastructure for survival and a shared responsibility on all of us. And it doesn't mean that by having a good infrastructure in the society, technical-wise, we are ready. So there's like, for each one of us, we have to try to include as many people as we can in different communities and build the trust that we have been long missing because of all this individualistic behavior that we've had. Thank you.
Amine, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If people have questions, you can ask them. But before, I'd like to ask you a question. We talked about this. I completely follow what you're saying, and also in building our own community, I think we take some of your steps where we can learn a lot from what you're doing, what you're saying. But you ask for collective action. But what kind of collective action do you take yourself?
A very good question. So I try to be connected as much as possible, of course. So you could have collectives of, in the university you would have different types of collectives. I was just talking to my colleagues that, oh, you know what, this event actually made us realize that there are so many people working on communities. Let's make our community of people working on communities, right? So it's actually everywhere, but I really want to emphasize that it's not easy. I mean, for me, I work 50 hours per week, and there's just literally no time to go and start my initiative, right? So I think it's a lot of work, and yes, we do our best, but I think it's just, like, eventually it's going to be the roles in the society where some people are more active and more driven to initiate these things, and others who support, like me. So I am part of communities, but I'm not initiating anyone. Maybe we'll initiate one together for the collective. But
you spread the seeds.
Yes, we try to spread the seeds, spread the word, and support them in a scientific way. And make it happen, build trust and inclusion.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
I like that. Are there any other questions? Yeah.
Actually not a question, more an observation. I mean, way back when we were hunters and gatherers, this was bloody common sense. Have we lost it so much that we don't realize that any longer?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I'm realizing. And you know, like, we have lost that in the front, but as soon as you start talking about it, as soon as you bring good examples of collective action in urbanism, in the urban world, you see that, oh my God, it's just there, but we're not seeing it. And that's why it's difficult, but it's so achievable because it's in our DNA and we have to bring it up. And make people realize that this is our nature. We have to be connected to be resilient in the face of the challenges that are coming our way.
There's another question. Oh, there's a mic coming your way.
So, you say 50 hours working. I think you can, how do you say it? Integrate in your work. You know, okay, when you're working alone, okay, you're in theory and okay, but you meet people at the coffee, in emails, everywhere, and I think you can.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. That's what we do. We have to practice what we preach, right?
Yeah. Spread the seeds.
Spread the seeds. I am doing stuff. So there's I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's a Collective Kracht. a platform which is a platform of all communities in the Netherlands. Oh, not all, but now it's huge, so it's around 500 already, the database. And I am a scientific board member, so that's how I connect to the different communities, provide support, and try to use my hours of work to contribute to the communities indeed, yeah.
Okay, well, let's be creative.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Amine. One more question. You can choose among yourself who's going to...
It's not a question, but rather a remark. In the Netherlands, the government does a really huge amount of top-down instead of bottom-up. This is bottom-up. But one of the things that the government could do is make community service mandatory, so you can choose either to serve, because they're considering that as well, or do community work. And that would be a way to get everyone
A taste of it.
Yeah.
a taste. That's the word.
Yeah, no, excellent suggestion, because I was actually in Rotterdam, in a community garden in Rotterdam a couple of weeks ago, and exactly like you say, they were saying, one of the questions that I had for them was, do you ever lack volunteers? And they said that no, as soon as people come here to do volunteer work in the garden, they just cannot disconnect, and they've been coming for years without stopping. So there's just so much sense of connectedness and so much pleasure in doing these things that as soon as you experience that there's room, and yeah, so the municipalities, for example, usually provide the space, so they rent out for free spaces to people. They are doing things, but it just needs to go much higher up and much more upscale.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have to say, you're associate professor of the Institute of Modeling Analysis at the faculty of TBM. I forgot to announce you in the right way.
No
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Big
Thank
applause. And now, Fatima Delgado Medina, you're a lecturer and researcher at the Sustainable Entrepreneurship and Decolonial Innovation at the faculty of TBM.
Indeed.
The floor is yours.
First and most, apologies for my broken voice. It's part of the journey. Well, I'm happy to present circular communities as a way to do entrepreneurship grounded in reciprocity and regeneration. But first, I want to invite you to my presentation, which will be navigating different languages from Spanish, Quechua, English, and many indigenous languages around the world. And why I'm doing this? Because for me, it's a way to honor my ancestrality, the lived experiences and the wisdom of the communities in Los Andes, in Ecuador, where I come from. But also where community practices such as Minga, remember this word, bring us together to clean the mazorcas y el maíz, to prepare humitas and tamales for our family, but also for our community. But how can we actually learn from these communities around the world? How can we actually understand them? And what is their role in the planet in crisis that we are living? From the Ticumum people in Brazil, in Minas Gerais, to the people in Chile, the Mapuche people in Chile, that they refer to the Itrofil Mongen, to the Tuvalu people in the Polynesian Islands with Whenua, they all refer to the same concept, the fabric of life. That means land, sea, culture, the soils, the waters, the forests, the animals, the spirits, and the humans, and they are all inseparable beings. Interesting. So they show that nature, we as a people, and belonging are all intertwined. But it's not only that, it's also the foundations of the ecological, social, and political foundations of these communities and these indigenous peoples around the world. But then, if we go back to see how the globe and the world is doing, this is a recent study that was published this year in 61 countries, and then we see, even though indigenous people and their languages is telling us humans and non-humans are inseparable, the global data is telling us that we are having issues into nature connectedness. In these 61 countries, we see that this is varying between cultures, and the most nature-connected countries are somehow reflecting worldviews connecting spirituality, nature, land, and community. They remain intertwined. On the opposite, the countries that are least connected, and we see the Netherlands is already doing minus points, is somehow reflecting the historical, political, and economic systems that are somehow distancing all of us from land, from nature. But also, we can also have an overview of the limitations that are happening. Many of these communities are seeing sustainable development, entrepreneurship, or innovation as a neo-colonial, but also see circularity as a limited concept. Why? Because it's mainly focused on technology or material flows. But these communities are already practicing forms of circularity based on the relationship that we have with nature. But also we have lines of, I would say, opportunities from convivial conservation, where we as humans and nature, we are all are conceived as part of the biodiversity, from circular communities, and also regenerative practices, where our ecological and societal well-being are in the core. And so it seems that regenerativity, spirituality, cultural beliefs, and relational ethics are already being practiced by many communities around the world. But how these communities around the world connecting with each other? So we already see that they are putting into practice reciprocity, solidarity, and care for the territory. As I mentioned at the beginning, the concept of Minga, the picture that we see all the way to the right in Tandayapa, Ecuador, actually these are 2 DELF students working in Minga with local community members to do co-design, build, and maintain infrastructure. And it's not the only practice. We see Sang in República Dominicana, Banjar in Harambe, Banjar in Indonesia, Harambe in Kenya, and Laku in Haiti. And they all are talking about the same: respect, shared responsibility, and the spiritual connection. And if I want to go to one example, in Bali, Indonesia, actually this was a research that we did with a master's student from COSEM, the same program from Josephine, where we were looking and trying to reply to the answer, what are the key Balinese cultures that can leverage circular community or circular economy? And the findings were quite clear. There were 3 elements that were highlighting: Banjar, Ganja, and Trihita Karana. Banjar is the community center where everything happens. Ganja is where the community operates based on the Ganja system, which is do voluntarily work. And Trihita Karana is this triangle that emphasizes the balance between nature, human, and the spiritual world. So if communities have been doing this, organizing themselves, what is going on in our current system? For one side, I think it's also connecting to the comments, no? Like the market is assumed that it's solved by individuals. It's giving us answers to the individual needs. The government is supposed to serve the public, but then the collective is largely overlooked. So how we can move forward and actually leverage these communities? We need a different economic system that enhance multiple value creation, but that economic system should be centered in these strict aspects, from ecological, political economy, and social, and should be addressing holistical values. And which are these holistical values? Justice, relationality, cooperation, and participation. So an economy that doesn't make harm and doesn't exploit humans and non-humans. But also, we need the communities to be recognized. So the ways that they organize themselves are recognized by the economy, because community initiatives are enablers of the transition, but usually they are not recognized. They are seen as a minor for top-down visions. They are not even recognized in entrepreneurship or as a form of innovation, and only seen as a one-way connection instead of being in a living system. And that's how we landed into the circular value flower method, which is a method that is trying to put into the ground and to the core the enablers, the ambitions, and the processes the communities have. And then from that, as the flower that is blooming and spreading across, is connecting to the research flows that the community is having, and how these collaborations with different networks between various actors can enact multiple value creation to design solutions. But I think it's more fun and more interesting to listen to what actually this means into the ground from the voices of the different communities across the globe. So we have...
And community-rooted knowledge as the foundations for regenerative-led entrepreneurship.
We developed a method called the circular value flower method, which looks at community initiatives and their values that they create by closing or trying to close resource loops. So the model is based on circularity, regenerativity, cooperation, collaboration with local community members, and the objective is to create multiple values. So not just financial value, but also ecological value, social value, cultural value, and aesthetic value.
Esta metodología está diseñada para trabajarse en talleres colaborativos, donde las personas trabajan por pasos, identificando sus fortalezas, identificando sus miedos, pero también las aspiraciones que tienen, pero también en una segunda parte, las personas que participan identifican los valores asociados a lo que quieren hacer en términos de sostenibilidad.
We have been collaborating collectively to enhance and to design different circular interventions for circular communities here in the islands. We have counted with many participants, from fishermen, chefs, representatives of the government, to collectively create this vision and these activities and interventions and projects to enhance circular communities together.
I've been at the forefront of this project in terms of working with communities and working with other stakeholders to try and bring everyone together in the room today. And I feel very happy about the accomplishments that we've had today, not just in terms of bringing people together, but also in terms of identifying what our specific roles are as we relate to the ecosystem of the Nairobi rivers.
I think the workshop has helped us to see things that we were not able to see on our own, in our own space. Now that we are in a big group from different places and also from different organizations and from different initiatives, and we were sharing the same space and we're discussing all these things in the same room. I think several ideas came up and different opinions also came up, and also like suggestions also came up, and these are some of the things that we as temples going back to our space, we are going to reflect upon.
Soy pescador artesanal aquí en Valle Pelicambay desde hace 6 años. Y hace aproximadamente unos 18 años atrás se me vino la idea de surcir la piel de pescado aquí en Galápagos porque tenemos bastante desecho. Y lo había visto por medio del rey, que en otros países lo están haciendo, entonces se me ocurrió la idea de hacerlo también aquí, un poco ayudar en Galápagos para evitar un poco la contaminación, porque ya sacamos un poco de piel de circulación que se van al desecho y hacemos un producto con el cual se puede sacar un beneficio, no solamente para mi persona, sino para muchas otras personas que tienen que integrarse para elaborar la tela.
Together with the Fishers and Gerson, we started a co-creation process to develop solutions. Combining our technical expertise with their practical skills, we have begun working towards effective solutions.
Estamos buscando la reutilización de todos los desperdicios o los desechos del pescado, para no poderlos botar al agua, sino volverlos a reutilizar. Hay partes que no se utilizan, hacer cuero, como hacer la piel del pescado como para quemaduras, hacer fertilizantes, aparte de que reutilizamos los productos de los desechos del pescado, el mismo dinero que circula dentro de la población vuelve a retomar.
We want a future river that has life, because as a farmer and I see the river is black, I believe downstream where we have big scale farmers, they are struggling, especially getting the quality of the water. But since I'm in urban, I have to fight for this river and give it life so that the farmers downstream will be able to get clean quality water for doing farming.
Since we have so many ideas like coming together, like we are many youth coming together, my expectations is we will like change ideas, but with the same goal, cleaning the river.
I think that for me is the call to action, and in terms of committing myself, committing my skills to be able to push forward the agenda of bringing holisticness into this research, into taking forward the actions that have been agreed upon after today's workshop.
I was really impressed that there were forests which were just planted a couple of years ago, and that is a proof that action is doing and learning from what has been done.
Our future is driven in collective effort, when communities can lead in becoming relational, circular, and regenerative.
But actually this process didn't start yesterday. It started in 2018, where we started to test the method, and then has evolved and has been expanded to impact education, to a first book in 2022, and then since 2023, we have been working with bachelor students, but also master students from TPM, but also from IDE, with communities that they have already connected, but also with the communities from our projects, communities in Argentina, Colombia, Indonesia, Kenya, but also here in Africa under Wijk, and many other cases here in the Netherlands. We are also working with different interdisciplinary projects in Galapagos, Ecuador, in Nairobi, Kenya, in the Netherlands, and we keep doing that. And also, we have been also working on different dissemination pieces from booklets that are used by the community members to disseminate their work and why communities are relevant. But also, I'm happy to share that we will be at the United Nations Women and NGO Conference in March 2026, which coincides with the publication of the second edition of Circular Communities, bringing all the learnings from the global perspectives across the globe. But before closing my presentation, this is my reflection and invitation to everyone, practitioners, researchers, students, and alumni. I think to work with indigenous and local communities, you need to embrace the Etwapapmangmuk, which is a word from the Mi'kmaq people in Canada, which means a two-side scene opening, which means we need to see the world with one indigenous eye and with one Western eye, because that is needed to build respectful ways of collaboration based on humility. And again, this work is not only my solo journey, it's a part of a long-term process collaboration, and I just also want to acknowledge all of them, from Ticuna indigenous people in Colombia to the indigenous activists that are also here in the Netherlands, experts in marine biology in Indonesia, community initiative leaders in Kenya, and transdisciplinarity teams in Galapagos, Ecuador, but also here in the Netherlands. This process is coming together between TU Delft and the Circular Community Foundation, and we're also leading the process towards the Circular Community Lab. And we also wanted to express our gratitude to the LDE Global Fund, who has supported this journey for regenerative futures. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima, for showing us the success of collective action. Your slide that showed that the Netherlands is in a minus score, maybe remember a story I just read that a significant percentage of Dutch high school students thinks that milk comes from a factory. And I thought it's telling, your slide was telling this as well. You showed us your inspiration while you work with communities, but what's your drive, your motivation to still do it?
I think it's a process of learning and unlearning from them. And also like rethinking also what is the way of collaboration, because also research and academia sometimes have also been distanced from communities. Yeah. So I think what really motivates me is like that we see this process of collaborating with these organizations is not just for research, is you have to build that trust, that relationship. And I think for the outcomes of this kind of research, but what also the anecdote that you're sharing, we need to be connected to nature. It's part of us as a human beings. And I think here in the Netherlands, we can learn so much from what is happening across the globe, but also give the acknowledgement and the recognition that they have, because all what we are talking about communities is spreading and happening across the world, as I shared.
So also the researchers should look with one eye, the research eye, and the other the community eye. Yeah,
and fine-tuning, because sometimes you forget to connect to what actually brings you the passion and the willingness to contribute to research and education. So I really like this anecdote and this analogy, and actually who actually connected me with this concept was one of my students, that she found herself, okay, I'm entering a community and I need to appreciate what I learned in the Dutch educational context, but I also need to unlearn in way to engage with the community. Otherwise, it's just a nice photo.
Yeah, it's just research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any questions, Floor?
Yeah, there's a question. It's very inspirational. It makes me think. One of my question is, do you see Do you see a difference between how women experience communities and men?
Absolutely, yes. And I think women are also, good or not, connected to community of care. And this happens everywhere. And I think we need both parties to get involved on that. Because as we see in maybe also you also recognize that in the pictures. In Bali, Indonesia, those who get more engaged into the Banjar systems are women, or are the youngest, or are the elders. And the same we see as well in a community that we are working in the Amazon, most that are called the guardians of the Amazon, trying to push forward to mining practices that are happening around them. The 30 women, I'm already replying, who are engaged are all female. So I think sometimes this also kind of replies back to my presentation. The economic system is somehow making this, like, putting us distant from each other. And I think we should put more attention to this. But again, it's quite clear that it's more female engagement in many communities, and I am sure that it also happens here in the Netherlands.
I think you are right. Thank you very much, Fatima. Thank you. Our next speaker, Wim Peers, Assistant Professor in Policy Analysis and Design, also from the faculty TPM. The floor is yours, Wim.
Thank you so much, Jasper. Yes, so I'm also a colleague from my previous two speakers from TPM, and I'm also a teacher in the COSEM program. And so we're very proud that Josephine, and congratulations again for this tremendous honor. And I hope that the students today will follow the innovative spirit of Josephine. And so being here today is already quite an inspiration. So thank you. And also lovely organization by the team. So thanks also for all the nice preparations. So I work on the topic of transdisciplinary policy design and implementation. And today I'll share with you just a few results from a recently closed EU project on the topic of energy citizenship, which I led. And hopefully it gives you yet another lens to understand self-sufficiency and from a lens of energy and the role that regular citizens may have. Here's a slide. Why energy citizenship. So this is what's going to be, the rest of my presentation is going to be about. And I think it's just another lens through which we can explore and understand a little bit about what communities are about. And it's focusing on the role of the citizen, the ordinary person, in the energy system. So the default image that we have of the energy system, right, is a centralized system. It's with big utilities, with infrastructure operators, policymakers maybe, engineers making all the key decisions, right? This is kind of what we have in our minds when we think about what an energy system is. And the public really is considered to be just going along for the ride. We don't have many choices we can make, and so maybe we don't feel like we don't have enough knowledge or interest to make any meaningful contribution to change, perhaps. And so when we talk about energy citizenship, this concept tries to flip that on its head. It flips the script. So it reframes the public, so these are residents, tenants, communities, prosumers, as having a leading role in the energy transition rather than having a passive role. And so they're not necessarily even only thought about as users or even as stakeholders, but really active agents with rights, with responsibilities, and real influence in change. And so you might be saying, well, that seems like that's idealistic, but is that really what's happening? Well, that's what we went forwards in trying to study in this project over 3 years. What are the different forms of energy citizenships that are out there, at least in the EU, and what are they doing? And how can we learn from them? That's the whole goal of the project. And so what is energy citizenship specifically? Other than what you see here on the screen, it's also defining the capacity and opportunity for people to meaningfully participate in shaping how energy is produced, how it's shared, how it's used, and in ways that align, importantly, with values, identities, and communities. And those are some of the themes that you'll see are very much connected to what Amina was talking about and to what Fatima was talking about. So energy citizenship is a combination of what citizens can do, right? What they're allowed to do, what they're motivated to do, and what actually happens in practice. And I think all four things you saw elements in the previous two presentations. It's a bit complex. It's not just what we want to do, right? And so energy citizenship is also where, I mean, this is a technical university, but it is also where we have to consider where democracy, where technology and social life all intermesh, and they collide into something much more transformative. And so this is our starting point then for this project. And so the main point was, what does energy citizenship actually look like on the ground? And this is what we found. I'll just go into a few findings that are relevant to our topic today. Love to share some more findings if anybody of you are more interested. And so we want to share something about what we learned about the diversity of self-organization in the energy transition, and also to explore the motivations. So what are the different forms that people have when they do self-organize around the topic of energy, and why they do it? So those are the two types of results I'm going to share with you. So first, if you look at this image that you don't have to read the text, I'll give the information. So first of all, the first finding, it's not going to surprise you. We found that there is not one type of energy citizen. Engagement came in many different forms. We saw, for us, we saw a pattern. There were three main types of self-organization. And this is, of course, limited. We were only in 12 countries in the EU. So it's very much a Western gaze. And they include the three that I have up here. It's energy communities and eco-farms. It's who were producing, storing, and distributing their own energy. There were political and social movements. So this is what you see in Fridays for the Future type of organization that's very much about criticism and political criticism, as well as what we found was collective targeted actions. And they were organizations or temporary organizations that focused on energy efficiency, energy renovation, or trainings or demonstrations, like perhaps in the Netherlands you're familiar with energy coaches, for example. So that's the first finding, simply that there are different forms of energy citizens and citizenships. So what's the second result? The second result is that we ask initiatives just formally, what is the motivation of your organization? Why do you exist? You also don't have to pay too much attention to this, but all we want to show you is that actually when you ask them, renewable energy production for consumption of the community itself was the explicit goal of most of the energy communities and the eco-farms that we asked, right? So if you ask them explicitly why you exist, also on their mission statements, also on their websites, that's what they say why they exist. Energy pure. We're here because we want to generate energy, right? So straightforward enough. However, what was interesting was the third result that we got, which was in addition to just looking at organizations, we talked to the individuals who were members of those energy communities. And we asked them, what was your individual motivation for joining? And there we saw that in addition to really being driven by energy provision, by being driven by resilience and energy security, so even more people cited that they were concerned with climate in general, and also having the sense of community and belonging, and also financial savings. These are kind of even, so we don't forget about the financial aspect of it. But this is the untold story about why people really also join energy communities themselves. I think there are some energy community members here in the audience today, so I won't impose on what we think everybody thinks, but this is just simply what we found across 280 members that we interviewed who happen to belong to these energy communities. So, finally, we found that, so we did also look at 60 different examples of energy communities, and we noticed then, as a result, so we compared what their explicit goals were and then what their individual goals were, and we found that especially the successful energy communities, the one who lasts more than 5 years, what they rely on was very much about social bonds, shared values, and a sense of belonging. And most of them, and all of them, go beyond the energy-related needs. So the successful ones really name that the sense of belonging was really the reason why they kept going. So, for example, we followed an energy community in Belica in North Macedonia. So I'll just tell a story here. And it's a small village in North Macedonia. The owner, the founder of the energy community, Rada, he was an expat from North Macedonia. He lived in France for 20 years, and he noticed that his own village was depleted. So all the young people went to Skopje, the capital, and it was dying. It was a dying village. So his dream was to go back to his village, make it into an energy community. In order to draw young people back, at the same time, he also measured the air quality of that village to show how much better the air quality there was versus a city. And so he attracted all these young digital nomads back into the village. And at the same time, he built facilities to transmit traditional crafts of Macedonian ironworks and other traditional skills and dancing. So he used energy community as a means to an end to attract people and to get funding from the EU, but that was not the driving force of why he formed a new community. And I think these are the type of stories that we maybe should remember just to have a more enriched understanding of what do we mean by energy communities, the role that energy has, and what is a community. So those are just a few examples, but perhaps it's just enough of a starting point to help us trigger some reflections on the connections between what I just told you about energy citizenship and this idea of centralized and bottom-up actions. And first is that energy sustainability is a means, what I just told you, could be a means rather than an end of much of the community activity that we saw. Like the case of Rada, what we do for energy is oftentimes driven by other concerns and values. And energy is used as a way of acting on these concerns and values and substitute energy for maybe any other resource. What is the most important thing to us? And perhaps the second point of reflection. Energy citizenship shows that individual behavior change is insufficient for change. Sorry. Yeah, that individual behavior is not sufficient for change. And so groups of people can also create change, but that's still limited in terms of creating change for the system, right? And we often saw many of these energy communities and eco-farms working hard and staying active. But they are swimming upstream. People really need fair rules in the bigger system, supportive infrastructures, distributional justice, systems themselves in which these energy exist need to enable that agency for change. Individuals alone are still limited, right? So we are in a puzzle of the fact that these communities themselves are the drivers for change, but they need continued support from institutions in order to subsist and in order to actually have sustainability themselves. And for this system change to be possible, it means that certain ways of thinking and institutional inertia must be overcome, right? But now we have this big question of, yeah, but how do you change the big system? That's nice to say, but that's why we're looking at communities, because the big system is difficult to change. In the case of energy, I would argue, one type of mindset change, and this you've been looking at while I've been talking, is to see energy from being a commodity to being a right. Now, please understand, I'm not arguing for this, but it is an example of how a mindset change shifts the way that we could then see the system differently than we are now. Because, for example, if we take energy to be a right rather than a commodity, that means energy poverty is a political failure rather than a personal shortfall, right? That would be one example. Another example is the purpose of the energy system, right? If this energy system is a right rather than a commodity, then it goes from maximizing efficiency, profit, etc., to maximizing social well-being. How do we then organize the energy system? And the third point I'll just end on is, if energy were a right rather than a commodity, then demand reduction, which means this idea of sufficiency, we only use what we need, it becomes a shared societal task and not an individual burden. What I need to do with my household, which heat pumps do I have to buy? It becomes a socially agreed upon goal. So this aligns right now very well with a rights-based energy policy with sufficient-based planning, and it's something that the EU is increasingly thinking about. And I will just end on this last point, I'll just end on this. The European Commission now explicitly acknowledges the potential role of energy sufficiency as a part of longer-term energy and climate strategies. But currently, if you look at the EU energy policy, it's heavily oriented towards technological solutions, right, to markets and infrastructure and supply side reform, as well as energy efficiency. However, the concept of sufficiency in EU policy is an opportunity to what? Link up the bottom-up actions that we have already seen, bottom-up mindsets, with top-down policies. And here is a key leverage point that we can consider, how we can expand the idea of sufficiency from small communities to shifting the way we run our systems. And that is a vision for the future. So sufficiency can create a shared narrative across various scales of action and create the enabling conditions, perhaps, for presenting alternative lifestyles which are sustainable, which lead to demand reduction. And building on the work that many communities have chosen already for themselves, and it opens the door for systems-level transformation. That's just food for thought. Maybe that's something that we can think more about together. So thank you so much.
Bimin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really like your mind shift idea of energy becoming a right.
Yeah.
And how can I translate this to my efforts or the efforts of the TU Delft and my team to create a more tight-knit alumni community. How can I
so
create
this is
a
where
mind
it's coming
shift?
back.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. How can I create a mind shift?
All right.
So that there is something, being alumni is a right, to congregate is a right. How can I transform this?
I like your question. I think it's a really good one. So I would go back to one of my earlier points about what makes a community, right? So what makes any community? And at least the work that we've seen through the eyes of energy is that you find a reason that you have a shared thing that you value. What is the thing that you value? And what we see is it's not multiple things usually, it's very one clear thing. So what connects you? What do you all care about the most? Because we all also, this is the other thing, it's not generally which values we kind of think are good. That's not what creates a community. Communities share one very clear number one value when they're together. So what is that for alumni of TU Delft? Is it, yeah, that would be a question for you.
Yeah, very good question. That's a question for you. So, has somebody else got a question? Because then I got a question for you. Tell me, when we have the coffee break, what's for you the binding factor, the binding thing that makes you an alumni and it makes you to want to make an alumni community? I think it's a very interesting question. Thank you very much for that. Mm-hmm. But there's one other question.
Again, not a question, but rather a remark. Everyone wants this, except the ones making the energy. They just want profit, and that needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point. I think somewhere in the library there's a little plaque that said that about the why the energy transition is not happening because the big corporates don't own the sun. And I think it's said by Ralph Nader or something. But I see it every day when I get my coffee, and I think that's the thing. Bin, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. And the last speaker before we have a well-deserved cup of coffee is Udo Pesch, an associate professor in ethics of technology, also from the faculty of TPM. Udo, the floor is yours, and that's the
Let's get rid of this. Okay, thanks for having me, and thanks for programming after these three great presentations, because I could really use your material. My story will be rather abstract, so we already have seen a lot of more empirical stuff, and that's great. So the title is Understanding How Communities Can Contribute to Social Change, really tying into Bin's question, or Bin's topic of just now. And basically what I want to say is something, what do we talk about when we talk about communities? That's the question I've been puzzling with for the last, 10, 15 years. And it's trying to get into an answer, but not getting there yet. Okay, let's start with the need for having a socio-technical transition. We were just outside having the plug for Josephine, and it's 9th of December, and we're standing in our summer coats. We all know that things are going environmentally horribly wrong. This is a well-known picture. You've probably seen it before. The planetary boundaries are all transgressed in in almost every respect. And we have to change our act. We have to make a transition, as it's called, towards a sustainable society, which means that we have to have new technologies, new practices, new policies. We need policies and measures to support these transitions. But what's stopping us? I mean, that's the big question, obviously, the million-dollar question. And one of the main aspects here is the lock-in that's caused by institutions. So institutions aren't wrong. Institutions are just rule systems that basically transfer rules of behavior, like I'm now presenting, you sitting there, and we all know what to do. I don't have to explain when you come in, please sit down because I'm going to present a story. We know what's expected, and institutions make life much easier. But it coordinates actions. But in the complex world that we're living now, the coordinated activities become more and more complex. We have institutions that span the globe, that we have 8.5 billion people all being part of the same institutions that have to, all these actions have to be coordinated. And this creates lock-ins because it creates interdependencies between these rules. We cannot just change the rules because then we have to explain to each of these 8.5 billion people, hey, we changed the rules. So there's a big institutional lock-in, and this is what we are dealing with. And some of the main manifestations of these lock-ins are clear. We just talked about energy companies needing to pursue short-term profits. To be honest, I think energy companies are differing in their motivations, but we surely see that most firms pursue short-term profit and trumpet with long respect goals, especially under the pressure of shareholders. If firms are not doing it right, then an often heard answer is then states have to come in. States have to come up with regulations that make the companies do the right thing. But also the states, they are acting in a competitive structure. They have to protect the well-being of their citizens, and they believe that this is best pursued by having more competition, by letting firms do their thing, pursuing short-term profit. So states are not compelled to impose regulations. It's something that we see on a daily basis, unfortunately. So also these states act as if they were individuals acting upon self-interest. Organizations, both in the context of the state and in the context of private sphere, have become bureaucracies. We talked about energy companies, we can talk about governments, we can talk about all kinds of organizations. They have become bureaucracies, and bureaucracies are basically rule systems in itself, and which basically displays the original goals of the organization by rules. So the rules become more important than the goals, and we cannot change that. And the upshot is that as individuals, as citizens, as consumers, as voters, we don't have, we think our actions have little impact. And this is where community initiatives, this is the button, come in. So sustainable community initiatives, we've seen a number of examples here, are basically seen as a promise to overcome this institutional lock-in or this diversity of lock-ins. And I've been studying in my work from different angles such sustainable community initiatives. I've been involved in the European project, the Climate Project, which you see on the left, in which we try to map out different of these initiatives, very much in line with what Bin said. I've been involved in many master thesis student work. I think that's one of the best things about TPM is that we have to collaborate with people from different sections, for instance, Bin and Fatima, and I see Elsa Sower. Oh, there you are. We work together in supervising master students, and this is such a richness of insights that you get both from your colleagues and the students. And many of them, along, let's say, the last 15 years, have looked at community initiatives and came with really a richness of findings about how these community initiatives work. But I've also been involved in projects with other TPM colleagues on community initiatives that were opposing the transition, that were protesting wind turbine parks, protesting carbon storage, so initiatives, technologies that were planned to conquer, or that were used to promote a sustainable society, were also resisted by community initiatives. So there's not just one way of understanding communities. They're not just progressive or regressive on first hand. And this is where my puzzle comes in. So how to understand community initiatives? What can be the role for social change? And opening that question, again, wrong button, I think there are three ways of looking at the relation between communities and the surrounding institutional systems. And these three ways are kind of confounded in ordinary, but also in scientific language, in discourse. So here are these three ways of looking at it. First, there's this opposition. Basically, people assume an opposition between
community initiatives on the one hand, and the institutions on the other hand. And if that is your outlook, you would say that change can also only come about when you resist the institutional system. The institutional system is seen as intrinsically perverted, and we have to overcome that by basically revolt. You can also say, we heard some examples of that, is that a community can be seen as constitutive, I never know how to pronounce it, constitutive, let's pronounce it as such, for the institutional system as a whole. I mean, we heard how a community can act as a seed, that it kind of nurtures or shields a certain change in its embryonic stages, and then it can flourish in the end. But we also see, and this is something that you often see when policymakers talk about community initiatives, they see it like mini societies. They see it like representing basically what society is. You're thinking in terms of living labs. Like, okay, in Dutch we have proeftuinen. So you basically said, well, this is the community, let's experiment, let's use it as if we can learn from it. And by that, kind of bypassing the autonomy of the community initiatives. And I don't think any of these is wrong, but I also think that we need to take them all into account. Underlying the opposition, which you kind of recognize in all of these three approaches, is what I think a romantic idea of communities, which we have to qualify, I would say. So communities, I think, are often conceived as isolated societal contexts in which a group of people shares a space, so it's very location-based, often spatial-based, and it's autonomous. It's independently generating, producing its own understandings of the world, sharing language, values, meanings, etc., etc. And I have some difficulties with this idea because are communities really autonomous, and does it fit our current, the structure that we have of the current society, and especially related to the topic of today, how does it relate to change? And I think if we, I thought I was falling off the stage. Anyway, so I think we have to take another kind of approach and acknowledge that communities are not as static, are not as absolute as this romantic idea presupposes, because we all are part of a wide range of communities. Only today I've been a presenter, I've been a part of this community, I've been to the section, to the faculty, I've been a father, I've been in my streets. So all these, it's a network of communities, and we conveniently navigate all these communities on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis even. So we enter different spaces, different languages, and we make it very easy. And obviously, also the other way around, spaces can accommodate different cultures. I mean, especially if you look at the multicultural society that we live in, I think there are a lot of nationalities only in this room, and we easily can communicate with each other. And then we go home and we talk our native language, or we talk to our wife somewhere in the middle if you're married to some person from another country. But we easily navigate these differences. Also, we have to remind that networks are not location-based nowadays. I mean, we have networks all over the world. We have been very mobile, coming with planes, with trains. We have the internet. We have communities on the World Wide Web, and we can navigate them very easily. And finally, as I said, I have some difficulties with the autonomous understanding of communities, because what we've seen in our research on protests against wind turbine parks and other renewable energy projects is that people do not autonomously, or these communities do not autonomously create their meanings. They create them as a reaction, as a response to developments from external. So if there's a project developer coming up with a proposal for a wind turbine park or another renewable energy project, then the community starts organizing itself and acting, responding, trying to think about what are our values, what is our language, what is our understanding. So we have to build in this acknowledgement of reciprocity. That's the word.
This brings me to my last slide. So last year I published a book in which I posed some of these questions, and I would have hoped in the meantime to solve these questions, but I didn't. So I just repeat the questions that I posed also in the book. But I think, yeah, we need to develop this ecological approach to communities and acknowledge that initiatives have different perceptions toward change. They're not definitely progressive or not progressive. There's no singular understanding. There's a wide diversity of communities, and they have different kinds of relations with surrounding institutional systems. But the most important thing, and that brings me back to my second slide, is they inform us how we can change. And I think Bin also gave a beautiful example here. They inform the institutional system and other communities about how we can navigate the question how to do things differently. They can empower us, they can give us the idea that there is something to be done. So we really need these communities in order to get an idea, yes, we can change. Yes, we can overcome the institutional deadlock that we're confronted with. And we have to acknowledge that it will be done in many different ways. There's not just one way of scaling up. I mean, they showed 3 ways, but I think there are dozens of ways if you really look at all these dynamics and mechanisms that are there. With that, I'd like to end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Udo, thank you very much. I like your idea that an event can bring about the people to acknowledge that they're part of to be aware that they're part of a community. I'm now thinking of what kind of event can I create that people are aware of the TU Delft for Life community. That's something for during the coffee break. But the question I posed before about the single thing that drives the TU Delft community. You're part of the TU Delft community. What will be your reaction to it? What would you think is what drives the Delftenaar? What binds them?
I think pursuing progress. I think the not this year, but last year's creed of the university was make life better. Yeah. I think this is what we share, we should share, and we also should think about that as teachers, students, and the community of alumni. How can we improve the world? How can we contribute to a better world? And this is also what I wanted to show in my presentation, because it's easy to become cynical these days. You know, if you look at how technologies are being how basically technology, capital, and powers are coming together nowadays. You see also among young students that what can we do? But if we understand ourselves as a community and if we all subscribe to the theme or to the creed that we have to make life better, I think we can come a long way. And I think we have a very positive contribution as Delft, as a Delft alumni.
I like the way you're thinking. We will make this happen.
Please do.
Are there any other questions? Then we'll have a coffee break, and I'll see you back at 3:30. Dank je. We gaan snel verder met de volgende spreker, Florijn de Graaf. Kom erbij, the floor is yours. Yes. En we zijn heel benieuwd.
Ja, natuurlijk. Staat hij aan? Kunnen jullie me horen? Ja, ja. Okay, top. Allereerst hartstikke bedankt, Josephine, dat je mij hebt uitgenodigd als externe spreker vandaag. Ik ben zeer vereerd. En ik vond het ook erg leuk om je gisteren voor het eerst echt te ontmoeten en te leren kennen. En ja, ik ben eigenlijk ook heel trots op je, ook al ken ik je pas kort. Maar ik vind het heel tof gewoon om te zien wat voor een ondernemend type je bent. En dat je niet alleen zeg maar een ontzettende aanpakker en ondernemer bent. Oh, sorry, I should do it in English. Maybe. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I should switch. Lekker. No, I just wanted to say that I'm very proud of you and I admire your entrepreneurial ability. And I also really appreciate the topic that you chose of self-sufficient community, because to me it sort of exemplifies that, you know, you're not only good at thinking in systems, but also outside of them and how to create new ones. And I already mentioned it in my LinkedIn post, but I think it's exactly, you know, these type of people that I think we need as we enter the age of regeneration, I would say, if we're going to enter it at all. Like maybe we have to create it ourselves. And so to me, you exemplify what I would call, instead of a Renaissance man, a Regenesis woman. And yeah, I'm really happy also to be presenting in the coming 15 minutes a bit about my own journey into self-sufficient communities. Like it's a topic that's very dear to my heart. And here you see me. This was 12 years ago when I was actually still studying at TU Delft, mechanical engineering at the time. And here you see me banden stampen, like stomping tires with a hammer. And this is a building technique that is used to create a type of house called an earthship. So an earthship is a house that is made completely of sustainable, locally sourced or recycled materials. And it's a lot of work actually, like to build one of these tires. Like one person could do 4 a day. And in order to build the walls of these houses, you needed 1,200 tires. So that is 300 man days, or like 1 man year or woman year of constructing just a simple wall. But it was all worth it to some degree, because like what was the type of self-sufficient neighborhood that was created? It's this one, the Aardehuizen, which today is already, I think, 11, 12 years old. Yeah, my father is sitting in the back, and this is his house right here. And if you want to come and visit, I think you can. Like generally, my dad is very hospitable to show people around. So please do. It's only, well, from here it's 2 hours between Zwolle and Deventer. And yeah, this neighborhood, the Aardehuizen, it's the most self-sufficient and sustainable neighborhood to date in the Netherlands. And well, the source of that is myself. But if anyone knows a more self-sufficient one or more sustainable one, maybe some of the professors here that are into it, please let me know, because I don't think there is. It has 150% of its own power generated, so it produces more than it consumes. The water cycle is also completely local and complete, like they pump it up from the ground. They use it after filtration, and then after use it goes to a helophyte filter, which is basically like a big pond with plants in it that filter the water. And then it overflows into an infiltration pond where it goes back into the ground again. So the water loop is completely circular, completely local as well. All of their heat is generated locally, and they even have, like here you can see it, this is already an old picture, but a community herb garden, which is on a public land, a park, but there they grow like some vegetables, and people that walk their dog, like also from the town outside, they can actually get some of the local produce that is made there with the help of the people living in this community. So this neighborhood, like to me, it really showed like, okay, it is possible to live more communally, more sustainably, more in balance with people, with each other. Like the people that live here, they built it together, they all know each other well. And I realized like, okay, I want to become like an eco-village engineer or whatever, you know, that may look like, but I want to help create more of these type of neighborhoods because I think, we need them, and it's possible, and it's not only possible, but also desirable. And so for the last 10 years, I've been helping on various projects around the world, applying myself as an engineer, helping to create systems for sustainable projects. And well, the photos you see here, like this one that was in Portugal 3 years ago, was also building a helophyte filter system there, like one of those wastewater filtrations I told you about. The one in the middle is a biomiler, so it's basically a giant compost heap with 100 cubic meters of horse shit and, or sorry, horse manure and wood chips, pardon my language. And you see the tubes in the middle, that's where water flows through, because as the compost heats up, it gets very warm, and you can extract the heat and use it to heat 5 homes over 2 winters in Denmark. And by the end of the life cycle of the compost heap, you have sustainable fertilizer for the agricultural land around it. And the last one was last winter in Mexico, where we were building an A-frame house in the middle of the jungle. The idea was that it was also going to be like completely self-sufficient and regenerative and all the beautiful buzzwords. But in the end, like all of these projects, well, not the systems themselves, but the projects that they were part of, they kind of failed in different ways. But generally, it has to do with organization, money, complexity, those kind of things. And I'll expand more about that later. But first I want to show also an example of another project that did work. This is Schoonschip in Amsterdam. It's a floating community of 47 houses, 30 boats. And this is at the time, this was the smartest neighborhood in Europe. So it is also an energy community. They have a smart grid with peer-to-peer energy trading. Like every house has a battery that acts as the brains of the house. The neighbors, they trade energy with one another, but they also trade energy as a collective. Like they got special exemption to basically act as like an energy trader on the electricity markets before dynamic tariffs were a thing in the Netherlands. And so, you know, there is also communities that manage to build self-sufficiently and sustainably. But they are more the exemption that confirms the rule in Holland, because most of these people, most of these processes, you know, it's very tough. And they all say, like both from Aardehuizen and Schoonschip, like if I had known beforehand what I would have gotten myself into, I wouldn't have done it, you know, because both of these processes, they were 8 years of planning, 3 years of construction, like a lot of meetings, a lot of complexity, like everyone had to get educated on all the different aspects on how to live like this. And while it's beautiful that it's possible to build as a cooperative in the Netherlands, that we have like legal forms for that, there's still a big barrier to seeing more of these communities happen and to scaling them and to replicating them. Here you see the number again. So 90% of these community-led initiatives, they fail. And that's a shame, because oftentimes the community-led initiatives, they are actually the ones that are willing to put more money in, you know, making it extra circular or extra sustainable, or, you know, they have more heart. They don't just think about the cost. And well, in my work, so I started a business to help with the engineering for the self-sufficient systems of these type of projects. I see basically 3 groups. So we have the communities, the cooperatives, and the visionaries with the big ideas, but that are still top-down in how they approach them. And then finally, there is the more traditional developers. And like for the communities, building self-sufficiently is too complex. For the visionaries, they have a problem of money. And for the conventional developers, there's the problem of risk. Like they don't want to take the risk to do things differently. So in the end, there is like a lack of integration, and that's, I think, still the reason why we don't see more of these communities happening. But it's not just a dream. Like I've been part of enough of these developments that I know what is technically possible, I know what's economically viable, and I also know that it's very environmentally necessary to live differently. And the way I see it, like the neighborhood is like the ideal scale to pioneer this, right? And so here you see sort of the core ideology of the business that I started, Smart Hoods, and it basically envisions the neighborhood as a cell, like a biological cell, and just like a real cell It is a semi-autonomously functioning unit with its own waste, food, water, energy systems. And it's independent to some degree, but it's also part of a tissue that's part of an organ and part of a larger body. So it's basically sort of taking a biomimicry approach to neighborhood development. And when you start to map all the different systems that you can put into a neighborhood, something really interesting emerges. And that's that, not only is it possible to have neighborhoods that are 100% self-sufficient in terms of energy, water, 50% food. Food is the difficult one, if you even want that to be fully self-sufficient. But the more systems that you put in, the more they start to work together, and the more they start to play like a symphony almost, right? And here you see an example of, this is just a prototype visualizer of how these systems would interconnect at different times, for instance, the day versus the night, or the winter versus the summer. And, okay, we didn't manage to get the live version working in time, I see. But yeah, this all is dynamic and interactive, and you can calculate and quantify all the flows in these neighborhoods, right? And that results in diagrams like the one you see here. So this is called a Sankey diagram. You have your input flows on one end, and your output flows on another end, and you can map for every system, like what comes in, what goes out, and how does it look and evolve over time, right? So if I had the interactive one working, you would see all the flows sort of dynamically updating and adjusting. And if you were then to sort of map that into the cell, you really get all the processes in the cell, the outputs from one system becoming the inputs of another. And, it really sort of creates this biological way of looking at systems. And so this is also what I do with Smart Hoods for project developers, to sort of take this idea of self-sufficiency and take the complexity and bring the clarity by mapping all the flows, by quantifying everything, by modeling it, and in doing so, helping project developers make easier choices so that they can maintain their ambition, because that's really often what is lacking. So with this methodology, we help to design, we help to define, and we help to de-risk the projects so that we can make sure that these self-sufficient neighborhoods actually become a thing. And with that, I would say the future, as I see it, is regenerative. I think that living in neighborhoods that supply you with your most essential needs, I think that can really become the norm if we can showcase it, if we can not only showcase it, but then productize it, just the same way that now people are driving an electric vehicle, right? Somebody had to build the first one, some people had to start buying the first one, maybe, the first one was a bit more expensive, but as it becomes more mainstream and people want it and you can offer it as a product, I think this could really be a way also for us to enact system change, because, if you buy a house, you also basically cast a vote with your money, right? And buying a house is the biggest decision that you make in your life. And so if you can put that money towards a new system, one that is regenerative, sustainable, and embodies much of the values that you like to see, I think it can really become a catalyst towards a greener future. And I think, well, Josephine, we've been talking yesterday a bit, and I think we're very aligned on this. So, yeah, I really hope forward to having more chats with you and seeing how we can create this together. Oh, yeah.
Florijn, thank you very much. Yeah. I have a lot of questions for you. Unfortunately, we are a little bit time constrained. So I hope you stay for the ball.
Yeah.
Then I'll ask them, and I'm sure other people have the same amount of questions. I think you had a very, very good and a little bit vulnerable presentation, but at the same time extremely inspiring. Thank you very much.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you.
And now, of course, the story we all were waiting for, from the newly chosen alumnus of the year. Josephine, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Josephine. I think you know that by now, and I'm very happy to be here. I will try to keep it short because we're on a tight schedule. But I will definitely try to take you on a journey when it comes to my personal connection with this team. Because when I got the news that I was the alumnus of the year, I thought, oh, wow, this is a great honor. And then I also got to hear that I could choose the topic of the symposium. And of course, I have won this recognition because of my achievements with Q-layers. But I thought maybe, because I can choose a team, I can just choose something that's very personal to me. And that is something that I am having a big vision about when it comes to the whole world, let's say. So I chose the topic of self-sufficient communities because I truly believe that it can be the key and the enabler to get us to the next leap that we need to go through, the next transition as a human species on this earth. But first, a little bit about my journey and about Q-layers. So this was a picture made in the first year of Q-layers. And that guy over there, that is Ruben. And together we started Q-layers. And we were both a bit crazy, maybe very crazy. We didn't have any idea what we were doing when we started this company, but we had a big vision. And that vision was about completely changing the way coatings are applied on industrial surfaces. And my personal drive in that was that I truly believe that energy efficiency is a #1 energy resource. So if you look at what we need in the energy transition, of course we need to install solar panels and wind turbines. But if we then not treat the energy in an efficient way, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of studies actually showed that we can cut emissions by 40% if we would just treat the energy in a more efficient way. So I realized that I wanted to contribute to making the industry more energy efficient. That was my driver to start Q-layers. So we started somewhere here in a small room at the TU Delft that we could just be there for free. And we got a voucher from the Aerospace Innovation Hub. We got a lot of support from Yes Delft. So we got a little bit of an idea of what we were doing. And then we went on that wild ride and roller coaster ride of changing this process. So before I started Q-layers, I didn't know about this, but millions of industrial surfaces all around the world are painted manually. It doesn't make any sense. Like you're here in Delft and you know what is possible from the technology perspective, and then you go into the harbor area and you see these huge ships and storage tanks painted manually using rollers in the same way as you would paint your bedroom wall. It doesn't make any sense. So, and not only that, it's a very time-inefficient process, but it also comes with a lot of waste. If you look at the typical paint process in industry, up to 50%, sometimes even 60% of the paint ends up into the environment. Actually, more and more research shows that one of the major contributors to microplastics in the oceans are paint particles. It's, why? It doesn't make any sense. Again, I said that 4 times, so I think it's enough. But we realized, okay, we need to change this. We need to change the way coatings are applied on industrial surfaces. So we started to develop the technology. I was still studying back then. I graduated in 2018, and then I could really work full-time for the company. And we got some donations. We got our first clients in the Netherlands, and we built the company to what it is now. And yeah. So we are now globally selling our robots for applying paint on all kinds of industrial surfaces. We coat storage tanks, we coat ships in dry dock environments, and we also coat wind turbine blades and towers. And we do that in an environmental friendly way where no paint is escaping to the environment. So we're saving up to 50% of the paint in the application process. So I'm very proud of what we achieved with QLA. We still have a lot to do. It feels like we just got started. And I have a deep passion for what we do. But I also know it's not enough for the current problems that we face in the world. It's just, you know, one light point in a big black mass. And I decided that today I want to talk about that. Because what I feel and what I see around me and with a lot of people that I talk about is that there's a lot of disconnection these days. We have been disconnected from ourselves, from community, and from nature. And I truly believe that that disconnection that is within us results in all the external problems that we're facing. It's like an external reflection or projection of the issues that we have inside and we didn't solve yet. And that resulted in a highly individualistic, capitalistic system where we overconsume and we try to fix all of our problems by building upon the problems that we have. So we're trying to treat the symptoms, but we're not looking at the root cause. So if you look at this, you think, whoa, this is massive. How are we going to solve it? But to me, the solution is very simple. So that's the good news. The solution is very simple. We just need to take time and space to go inside. And I have one example. So this year, I did a vision quest following the Lakota tradition, which means I went up on a mountain, being by myself in nature, in, let's say, a circle, 3 diameter, that I didn't go out for 4 days without food and water. So I was completely by myself in nature. And what I realized, and this was one of the most profound experiences in my life, just being there for 4 days. And one of the insights that I got is, it's so simple. We just need water, food, shelter, and people that we love around us. That's all we need. And the rest is all stories. We try to make everything complicated and we're constantly in our mind, but the solution is so simple. And I truly believe that living in a self-sufficient community where those basic needs are taken care of can lead to, let's say, an upgraded way of living as a human being. So I've been experimenting with this personally, and I want to tell you a bit about my personal journey. So around 5-6 years ago, when I got pregnant and I had all the hormones of becoming a mother, I realized that I didn't want to raise my daughter in a normal house. I realized that that was not what I desired. And together with my partner back then, we came up with the crazy idea to build a tiny house by ourselves and live in a completely off-grid way. So the house was finished a few months after she got born, and then we moved in. And it was a great journey. And in this house, we lived almost completely off-grid. We were moving a bit from place to place, so we were not able to live fully sufficient, but we were, at least for 80%, we were self-sufficient when it comes to energy and water, because we were catching the rainwater, we were storing it, and then we were filtering it towards the house. We had 10 solar panels on the roof, we had a battery, we had a rocket stove, we had everything taken care of. And it was a very cozy house. And what I realized in this process, because the tiny house was also on wheels, it was very flexible, that you can also live in a self-sufficient way. You don't need to live in a tiny house. You can live in a villa. It doesn't need to be in a tiny house. But it is very interesting to experience because you go way more outside, which is what we loved, living like this. And when it comes to food, so we were moving around with the house, but we had one season where we had like a calm year. And then we made a huge, actually quite small garden where we planted seeds. And that was the first time for me to experience gardening by myself. And I was amazed by how it was growing. So this was like, okay, something's coming out. And then before, like within a few months, it was a complete wilderness. And we could eat from this from, let's say, April, May, up to December. we were still eating from the leaves because we were only cutting the leaves and the roots stayed. So it continued. And the next year, because we had to move already in, let's say, the spring again, so we didn't plant new, but we were still able to eat from what we planted the year before in the next year. So it was for me like, wow, you can actually live, especially in the Netherlands, there's so much water. You can live self-sufficient also when it comes to food. And we also had pigs and chickens, and so we had eggs. We also ate the chickens and the pigs, which is also a very interesting experience. And well, you see, my daughter was raised in this environment, which is so fulfilling, I think, to see your daughter to be raised like this. But what we also realized is, because we were just in our own house, that we were missing community. And back then, a few years ago, I only recently realized that I didn't even know completely what was community about. But I knew that I was longing for it, you know, living with like-minded people, sharing, and upgrading each other to another level. And I think all of us, deep inside, we long for community. I think it's in our nature, it was also talked about before, that as a species, we are also an animal. We like to live in community, it's in our DNA. So I think we deep inside, we all long for community. And nowadays, especially in the Netherlands, we are so disconnected. I think a lot of people don't even know their neighbors. It's like in the cities, you don't talk with your neighbors. While there's so much value and fulfillment in that. So I tried for a few years when we started to live in a tiny house, I tried to set up villages in the Netherlands, free initiatives actually, they all failed due to different reasons. And I just found out like how bureaucratic and how many rules there were. Because what I wanted to do was something beautiful. Why not everyone embracing it? Like, come on, I just want to live in my own way. I'm not harming anyone. So why is it not enabled? And I found, so since last year, I'm spending most of my time in Portugal. Well, we found an amazing place, like an international school project for our daughter, where we also live in the valley. And here I actually started to realize what the value is of community. Because we live in the valley, all in separate houses in their own place, but there's a lot of sharing, and the kids run around because there are no cars in between, so they can, my daughter just turned 5, but she's going to the houses, and then she's going to that friend, and then she's going to that friend. Like, I'm not, in the Netherlands, it's so difficult because you have the cars going around, and it's also isolated. You have the own family that's taking care of the kids, where I now started to realize, wow, there's so much power in living in community. And it comes from just, oh, I forgot to get something from the supermarket. Can I borrow it from you? To, hey, I really need some time for myself. Can you take care of my daughter for a bit? Yeah, sure. It's such an eye-opening reality. And I wish this for everyone. I wish this really for everyone. But what we need is, to create this and to make it accessible for more people, is we need to get out of our tunnel vision and all of the bureaucratic rules that once maybe served but are maybe not serving now anymore. So what I would suggest is that we make more space for experiment and for innovation, because innovation needs space. And if you put too many rules and restrictions, then the transition will take very long. So innovation needs freedom. So, and there's a lot of freedom, you know, if you just put all of the rules aside and you just look at, again, like, what do we actually need? And if we just look at our needs from a complete perspective of freedom, how can we create that in the most efficient way? So I truly believe that we need to build from the ground up. And I have had so many experiences also within QLayers that this is what is needed. So if you look at now with QLayers, we're launching the version 5 of a specific robot type. And the version 4 was like a complete complex system, because every time when we had a problem, we solved it with some extra, you know, coding or extra component. Where if you look at the version 5, it has only 50% of the components of the version 4. It's cheaper, it's 2 times as fast. So it's better in every way, it's revolutionary. And how that is possible is the engineering team sat together and we said, okay, if you just put everything aside and you can start totally from the ground up, from scratch, taking with you everything that you have learned, what would you build? So put the version 4, we love that system, but just put it aside. And what would you put, what would you create now? And they came up with a completely new system, revolutionary. So, and I think that is what we need when we want to make this accessible for more people. We need to build it from scratch. We need to make space and then look at what do we actually need? Water, food, shelter, people that we love, and maybe energy, but it's a luxury thing. But everyone likes energy. But that's it. That's it. So we need to build it from the ground up. We need to make that space. And then I think we are actually able to make that transition, to make that next human evolutionary leap towards a new consciousness that is rising. You see, all the systems are in transition, political, economic, all the systems are in transition. Everything is making us ready for the next leap. And we can do it fast. We can make the transition smooth if we make the space for experiment and innovation. So that's my main message of today. Thank you. Yeah.
Josephine, what again, a very, very inspiring story. And I think the people at the Green Village that are experimenting in a regelvrije zone. I can't come up with the right translation immediately, but they share your vision. And when I heard you talk about freedom, I thought the true spirit of the entrepreneur. I presume there are probably a lot of questions for you. You for certain will be at the drinks afterwards, so then we can have then people can ask you everything they want, up to a certain level. But now I'd like to ask Tim van der Hagen, rector magnificus en voorzitter van het college van bestuur, to come here for the ceremony. Please stay here. And
well, you can sit down. You
okay.
can sit down, please.
Here.
It can take some time. Are you okay? Thank you very much, Jasper. How are you doing, Josephine? Are you enjoying yourself?
Yes.
I am. A wonderful presentation from Florijn. I missed the previous ones before the break. And this very passionate and indeed inspiring presentation from you. The value of community. That's what we are, right? The TU Delft community. That's what brings us here. So thank you very much. It was really, really great. But now we come to a more boring part of today's event, the official part. In a few minutes, I will present the official Alumnus of the Year 2025 award to you, Josephine. And earlier today, we sort of put you in concrete. Well, that is the plaque. And we have a walk of fame. If you leave the auditorium later on, this building, at the Mekel Park side, and you turn left, you will see there a sort of walk of fame to concrete. Oh, there we are. There is the plaque already. That was earlier this afternoon. Smiling people, that's great. And do we have a picture of the plaque itself? Perhaps the next one? Oh, no. That's something else. But, well, there were no print errors. We checked everything and it was okay. And there, the walk of fame, let's sort of walk along it in spirit. There are two sides. One side is dedicated to historical alumni, those that were educated at the TU Delft over the last 184 years, and people that really made a difference. And among them, indeed, that was the next picture, is Lau Ottens. There you go, Lau Ottens, 1952, mechanical engineering graduate, and he was the inventor of the most prominent sound carriers of the 20th century, the cassette, oh, it's already there, cassette tape, and also the CD. Then there is Bout Vogelzang. Many of you will know him, at least people from TU Delft know him very well, the inventor of glare, aircraft material now being used in the Airbus aircrafts. And we also know him as front runner of public-private partnerships. He graduated in 1967. Then we have a plaque that celebrates our first female graduate, Maria Bess, who got a degree in chemical technology in 1904. And she also became the first woman on the Delft Municipal Council. That was in 1919. Then there's one for Jeanne van Amstel. She graduated in chemical technology in 1910. And 2 years later, she became the first female researcher to obtain a doctorate here in Delft, cum laude. Then there is Toos Corvezet, Antonia Elisabeth Corvezet, 1922, also chemical technology graduate, who went on to become a first female full professor and our first professor of theoretical chemistry. So Corvezet, Van Amstel and Bess, they stand out because of their achievements, but also because they were the first women. Something special at the time. Diversity was not yet on our agenda then, Sophia. It still is on our agenda. We still have work to do, a lot of work to do, but we try and do our best. So 40 historical alumni on one side. And the other side of the Walk of Fame, 40 contemporary alumni. And well, you are since early this afternoon one of them. So there you see Jan Maarten Geertman from Heineken, Ronald Prins from Fox IT, Bas Buchner, last year's winner, former director of Maren, Joop Rodenburg, he's with us here today from Huisman, Francine Huben, a world-renowned architect, and many others. Karen Sluis, Alumnus of the Year 2021, former director of Witteveen and Bos, and she's also the chair of our Delft University Fund and a jury member for this award. Then there is 2023 winner Hester Leriche, and she invented an interactive magic table that enriches, there she is, the lives of so many people with dementia. So and many others. These are people that not only made great achievement in their professional career, but also stayed in tune with us. Also they stayed connected to their alma mater, to us. So they're a living proof of what it means to pay back, to give back, to inspire students, to encourage young researchers and entrepreneurs, and to serve as a sort of intermediate between the university and the outside world. And you are a true example of that, Josephine. But now I have a few written pages here. Why Josephine? It's on top of it. so bear with me. Because Josephine is an alumni who shows what it truly means to turn vision into impact. As co-founder and CEO of Q-Layers, she didn't just start a company, she started a movement towards a more sustainable world. Her story is one of courage, creativity, and relentless drive. And we've just witnessed that drive and that passion. Has he got that from you? Your mother is right behind you. I'm not. Well, from us. Okay, like a father. Okay. Industrial coating has long been plagued by inefficiency. You told us, where up to 50% or even 60% of paint is lost to overspray. Josephine and her co-founder created a better way. Today, Q-Layers, innovative robots, apply coatings faster, safer, and with minimal waste. They even create shark skin-like textures that reduce drag by some 8%, helping industries to cut emissions and meet climate goals. That's not just engineering, it's true impact. From a first venture, selling yoga leggings made from recycled plastics, to leading a scale-up recognized across Europe, she has shown that sustainability and entrepreneurship can go hand in hand. And you just presented some other examples. And what makes this even more inspiring, Josephine achieved all this at an age when most of us are still figuring out our path. How did she do that? Among other things, by writing a business plan while on a semester abroad, studying in Indonesia. And by writing a thesis in the evenings and in the weekends, and still graduating on time. That's what I call multitasking to the next level. With that amount of personal energy, it's no surprise that she's now already focusing on a new ambition, helping people to live sustainably off-grid. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about it in the future. All this has not gone unnoticed. Her accolades, from Best Young Female Emerging Innovator to EY's Emerging Entrepreneur of the Year, tell the story of a leader who never stops pushing boundaries. But beyond the awards, Josephine represents something bigger. The spirit of TU Delft, a belief that with the help of technology, we can make the world a better, more sustainable place, a commitment to solving real problems, and a willingness to dream big, that's clear, and act on those dreams. And that's why today we proudly name Josephine Groot our Alumnus of the Year 2025. She's a beacon for the next generation of engineers, proving that with passion and perseverance, many things are possible. Or in your own words, just start. Don't wait, it's written over there, don't wait for the perfect idea or plan, make mistakes, then learn and pivot. Our students could not wish for a better role model. That's why, Josephine, you more than deserve your place on our Walk of Fame. Could you please now join me on stage? So, be careful. Okay. So, now, where are the official items? Oh, they're over here. Okay. Here's a sort of a small copy of the plaque that's already in the Walk of Fame. There you go. Congratulations and thank you very much for everything. Wonderful. Do we have... have a photograph?
En de fotograaf.
There's the photographer. Did we do well so far? Or? Okay. Otherwise, we just do it again. So here you are. Thank you very much. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Ja. Nog even een foto ook met de
familie.
decaan erbij. En
ja,
familie.
En familie, ja.
Ja, dan hebben we het helemaal... Dan maken we het helemaal af.
I could stand next to you on that side. Please join us on stage. Please do.
Ja.
Oké, toch of niet?
Ja,
ja, tenzij Josephine zelf niet wil.
Even
zou kunnen. Gefeliciteerd.
Ja.
Wel. Proficiat. Wel. Proficiat. Gefeliciteerd. Nou, maken we even een mooi steltje.
Een mooi groepsportret.
Ja. Zo.
Ja.
Ja, helemaal goed. De fotograaf staat in het donker daar.
Ja,
hij
je
staat
ziet
net weg. Maar het een telelens.
Allemaal van een afstand gaat het helemaal goed. Ja?
Oké. Thank you very much.
Dankjewel.
Dankjewel. Gefeliciteerd, Josephine. Dankjewel, Tim, voor deze buitengewoon mooie obade, of hoe je dat ook wil noemen. En Josephine, heel erg... Oh, sorry, I have to do this in English as well. Congratulations with this fantastic achievement. This was a truly interesting and fabulous symposium, because when we started, I had this question: what is the how can this symposium help me to make the TU Delft for Life alumni community more tight-knit, more active, more involved? And I think we got some questions. We got some answers, also questions, of course, but also answers. The first thing was that we need to find the true spirit what binds us. And I think the idea is that the Delftenaar is innovative and acts and indeed tries, then and perhaps fails, pivots, tries again, and in the end succeeds. So the innovative part and the acting is, I think, what makes us all Delftenaar. Another thing is also what we saw is the cultural effect of communities, and we have to think about that. And I think what we experience now when we try to create communities, or we actually, the thing is, you can't create communities. Communities have to evolve bottom up. Another lesson from today is that we see the most successful communities are those that are based on identity, are based on the fact that you are a foreigner, a foreign TU Delft alumni in the Netherlands. That's part of your identity. But also, I think, the most successful example of a community within the TU Delft for Life community is the Delft Female Impact community. Being a female is part of your identity. And I think that's a very strong example of a community. So that's another lesson, that the cultural aspects, also identity, plays a big part in community forming. But I think another thing that when I go around with the people, the audience here, and talk about their experience, another thing that binds us all is not only the innovative part, the acting, the identity, but it's also being very, very proud of Delft, of being alumnus, having endured the tough studies here, having endured the very tough analysis, the math exams, and you all succeeded. And when I talk to alumni across the world, they all say, I'm so proud that I did this tough study and made it, and I still wake up at night thinking, oh, I still have to do this last math exam or this last exam, and they all feel that it's a big achievement. So being proud of being a Delft alumni is also part of this community. Now, with that, I think we did a very good job in speeding up, actually. So we ended up early. However, I still hope that the people at the bar are ready for the drinks. But this is the end of this very successful symposium. I think, Josephine, I've witnessed a couple, and I think you are a true alumnus of the year. I'm very, very proud that you are part of this community, and I wish you a lot of success in your endeavors in creating these self-sustainable communities. And I have some questions for you, but I'll propose them when we have a drink. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very pleasant night, and hope to see you all again. Thank you.